Imagine a place where the groom isn't allowed to see his bride until the very moment they say, "I do." Where the world's first skyscrapers were built entirely out of clay. Where there's a one-of-a-kind spice feast offering flavors you can't find anywhere else on Earth. A place where women, with their mysterious beauty, can only be glimpsed through the deep veils covering their faces, veils that no man is allowed to lift. This is Yemen, one of the poorest and most dangerous countries in the Middle East. A land where people chew narcotic leaves daily just to stay alert, starkly contrasting the wealth and luxury of neighboring Saudi Arabia. What secrets lie hidden in this land that the outside world seems to have forgotten? The Islamic nation of Yemen is grappling with war, chaos, and poverty. If you're curious about what life is really like in this country, I highly recommend watching this video until the end. I promise, it'll make you feel lucky to be living in your own country. Don't forget to turn on notifications so I can see you again in the next video. But first, let's take a look at some general information about Yemen, and then dive into what everyday life is like for its people. Yemen is a resource-rich nation currently facing a severe crisis. Located at the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula, Yemen is shaped like a large rectangle, covering an area of 555,000 square kilometers. Despite its vast land, the country has a relatively high population density, with around 33 million people. The population primarily speaks Arabic, and nearly all Yemenis are devout Muslims, accounting for 99% of the total population. Yemen shares its borders with Oman to the east, Saudi Arabia to the north, the Arabian Sea to the south, and the Red Sea to the west. This strategic location, especially its proximity to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, through which 12% of global trade passes, makes Yemen a key geopolitical hotspot. The country is rich in oil resources. Oil can be extracted directly from Yemen's land and rock formations. However, like many other oil-rich nations in the Middle East and Africa, Yemen has failed to harness this resource effectively, leaving its economy underdeveloped and far from reaching its potential. It's an ironic paradox. In a nation abundant in oil reserves, gasoline at local stations must be imported from neighboring countries like Oman due to the lack of domestic extraction and refining infrastructure. This clearly illustrates the paralyzed economy and poor governance. With its long coastline and vast deserts, Yemen holds tremendous tourism potential. The pristine beaches along the Arabian Sea and the Red Sea, golden sand dunes, and majestic rocky mountain ranges could easily attract travelers from around the world. However, ongoing internal conflicts have severely hindered this development. To this day, Yemen has virtually ceased welcoming tourists due to persistent violence and unrest, with no signs of resolution. Flights into the country have become extremely difficult, if not nearly impossible. This difficult situation has severely impacted the lives of the Yemeni people. Over 80% of Yemen's population currently requires urgent humanitarian aid, and more than 60% live on less than $1 per day. The United Nations has declared Yemen the world's largest humanitarian crisis, with millions of people displaced and living in extremely harsh conditions, lacking food, clean water, and basic necessities. Yemen's history is also marked by turbulence and tragedy. Around 200 years ago, Yemen was part of the Ottoman Empire, though the empire's control over the region was far from smooth. In the mid-19th century, the British intervened in Yemen, sparking rebellions and helping the Arabs break away from Ottoman rule. Following World War I and subsequent ceasefire agreements, Yemen ceased to be a part of the Ottoman Empire. However, deep divisions among the Arab tribes within the country prevented national unity. The nation continued to be plagued by internal power struggles, laying the groundwork for future instability. In 2011, the Arab Spring plunged Yemen into a deep political crisis, leading to the collapse of its government. Since then, the country has been in a near-constant state of turmoil, corruption, and unresolved challenges. While people hoped for change, no strong leader emerged to turn the situation around. This opened the door for international organizations such as the United Kingdom and the United Nations to intervene in Yemen's internal affairs, interventions that sometimes complicated the situation further. with accusations of ineffective aid or even exploitation. The brutal civil war, which began in 2014, has turned Yemen into one of the most dangerous countries in the world. The conflict between the Yemeni government, backed by Saudi Arabia and the West, and the Houthi rebels, supported by Iran, escalated into a bloody proxy war. More than 250,000 lives have been lost, and widespread famine has driven millions into poverty and suffering. Yemen's healthcare system has completely collapsed, resulting in severe public health consequences, especially for children. Tragically, even weddings and funerals have been targeted in attacks, deepening the pain for ordinary citizens. Security conditions in Yemen are extremely alarming. Traveling through the country means passing through dozens of military checkpoints with the constant risk of being kidnapped. Many locals, including tour guides, carry rifles for self-defense. Shockingly, there have been reports of terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda operating freely and even allegedly collaborating with certain factions in the conflict, making the situation even more complex and dangerous. Children, the most innocent victims, are often forced to become soldiers or laborers at a very young age, sometimes as young as 8 to 10 years old, carrying rifles larger than their own bodies. To visit Yemen, a country that doesn't exactly allow tourists in the conventional sense, you'll have to navigate a host of obstacles. Obtaining a visa is already a major hurdle, requiring you to pass medical tests for HIV and hepatitis. Direct flights are virtually non-existent, forcing you to fly to Oman, Yemen's neighboring country. From the eastern Omani city of Saltah, the closest border point, you'll drive roughly 33 kilometers, a journey that takes around 2 hours. The route is deserted, with narrow asphalt roads and the occasional wandering camel. At the Yemeni border, you'll encounter Somali soldiers who will stop and interrogate you, warning about the dangers of the region. However, after a brief questioning, entering the country becomes relatively easy, as the border is barely guarded. It's important to note that entering from the northern border with Saudi Arabia is impossible, since key cities like the capital Sana'a are in the west, an area plagued by instability and tribal conflicts. Therefore, the eastern border with Oman remains the only feasible entry, though it still requires a press card and special access granted by authorized organizations. As soon as you cross into Yemen through the eastern border, the first sight to greet you is one of dilapidated, crumbling buildings. The surroundings are eerily silent, with only the occasional figure passing by. It feels like stepping into another world, from a completely different era, not the year 2024. The gloomy sky blends with the pale blue of the distant sea, and you drive along a dirt road where sand and gravel mix together, giving the impression of being lost on some distant planet. The once famous coastline is now abandoned, serving as a refuge for wildlife. Crabs have dug countless tiny holes in the sand, turning them into new homes. But not all sea creatures are so lucky. Some are stranded lifelessly on the shore, washed up by the waves. As you move deeper inland, signs of civilization begin to emerge. Makeshift shops, bustling locals, and the occasional passing vehicle. However, the streets are dusty and littered with garbage, and the signage on buildings looks decades old, as if nothing has changed for years. The atmosphere suggests that it's been a very long time since anything new has been built here. It paints a picture of a country in decline, where any sense of development has been completely forgotten. Visiting here is an experience filled with fear. You might hear gunfire at night, be stopped multiple times at checkpoints, and have your bags and clothing searched. Filming is extremely risky, and you'll often need to keep your camera low. At times, you'll drive through Al-Qaeda territory, witnessing their flags fluttering at random checkpoints. The fear of being kidnapped constantly looms. The concept of lawlessness takes on an entirely new meaning in Yemen. There's no law, and no one cares. You might see children as young as 8 driving pickup trucks at high speeds on the highway, or even younger child soldiers wearing large rifles and daggers. It's an experience that might remind you of scenes from Afghanistan. When you visit a local shop in Yemen, the first thing you'll notice is people eating simply with their hands, often accompanied by tea in most meals. Yemeni cuisine stands out with its signature bold spiciness and sour notes, reflecting the region's deep culinary heritage. Camel meat is a favored source of protein among locals, though it might seem unusual to foreign visitors. Shops and restaurants are typically makeshift structures, highlighting the hardship of life under harsh conditions. If you're particular about hygiene, eating here may present a challenge. Still, in busier streets, life continues, and some people manage to make a living with the most basic of incomes. The income level in Yemen is currently extremely low. Some people earn only around $30 per month, a figure that seems unbelievable to many. The average monthly income of a Yemeni is about $100, mainly due to the severe depreciation of the Yemeni rial against the US dollar. Even essential professions like doctors and teachers, despite being respected, don't earn enough to sustain a basic living. A highly qualified doctor makes only about $200 a month, which isn't enough to meet essential needs. As a result, many Yemenis are forced to turn to illegal side jobs or accept bribes just to survive. This has become a necessary part of daily life, as people are left choosing between necessity and legality. This situation clearly reflects the paralysis of Yemen's economy, where women often remain unemployed, and the entire household economy depends on the man. Yemeni men typically sell items like souvenirs, spices, perfumes, vegetables, fruits, or textiles. However, even with goods to sell, finding buyers is difficult due to low demand and rampant inflation. The problem is made worse by the ongoing fuel crisis, which has tripled gasoline prices from 50 cents to $1.50 per liter, making transportation and delivery of goods extremely challenging. Every time you buy something from a vendor here, you can see the joy and brightness in their eyes. They are especially open to being filmed and often greet you with a warm smile. This reflects a part of the Yemeni spirit. Despite the harsh realities of life, they maintain their hospitality and find small joys in everyday moments. However, it's worth noting that vendors often handle goods directly with their bare hands, which might be uncomfortable for those concerned with hygiene and food safety. But this is simply how they live and earn a living in their current reality, an undeniable testament to the resilience of the Yemeni people. As you walk through the narrow streets of Yemen, it feels as though the old buildings around you could collapse at any moment. Indeed, many structures have deteriorated to the point of severe disrepair, bearing little trace of their former glory. Sana'a, the capital and one of the oldest cities in the world, with over 2,500 years of history, is renowned for its distinctive architecture. Mud brick buildings adorned with intricate white patterns, resembling gingerbread houses. However, their current state of decay has overshadowed their once striking beauty. As you pass through neighborhoods, you'll notice that most of the people on the streets are in their 40s and 50s, with visibly weary faces, and the younger generation is noticeably absent from public squares. Men typically wear traditional Arab attire, rarely influenced by Western fashion trends. One thing that stands out in every Yemeni city is the ever-present trash lining the streets, highlighting the crumbling state of local infrastructure. Signs on buildings have faded with time, leaving behind barely any trace of modern development. On top of that, the country suffers from chronic power shortages, with electricity rotating between 3 hours on and 3 hours off, a daily hardship that people in the West often take for granted. If you don't speak Arabic, navigating this country can be truly challenging, as very few people speak English. Almost everything is written exclusively in Arabic, and locals generally do not understand English. Therefore, if you need to communicate effectively, it's best to hire a guide to avoid misunderstandings. Wandering through Yemen's markets, you'll come across unusual items, like a plant called kat, which resembles spinach. This plant is extremely popular in Yemen and highly favored by locals. But don't let curiosity mislead you. Kat is actually a drug that produces a relaxed, euphoric state. Yemenis chew its leaves to experience this high. Surprisingly, the plant is not only widely cultivated and consumed domestically, but also exported, especially to parts of Africa. If you visit a cat market, you may see people moving erratically, as if they were in an altered reality. It's best to be cautious around these areas, as cat is highly addictive and, once tried, can be hard to give up. Some people even line up to buy it. Despite Yemen's extremely harsh living conditions, the widespread use and deep cultural significance of cat reflects its powerful presence in local life. Chewing cat is a daily ritual and the go-to way for Yemenis to pass the time, as they gather for hours to chat and chew together. However, cultivating cat competes directly with vital food crops for water and arable land, worsening food insecurity in a country already struggling with severe shortages. Yemen is a country situated in a vast desert region, yet it holds a raw and strange beauty. The sweeping golden dunes across the land are not just soft sands. They are solid rock formations shaped over thousands of years by natural erosion. Unlike the typical Arabian deserts you might imagine, Yemen features rugged and difficult to navigate terrain. If you look at a map, you'll see a country full of challenges, marked by its harsh landscape. Along the streets of Yemen, one can't help but notice the weathered buildings tinted in dull hues, mainly sandy yellows and desert oranges. Some structures, such as hotels and palaces, were once symbols of wealth and grandeur, but now most are abandoned or struggling to operate without guests. This is a clear reflection of the ongoing crisis as the nation sinks deeper into hardship. As you move beyond the cities and onto the desert roads, a heartbreaking scene unfolds. Barefoot, dust-covered children wander along empty roads. With no access to transportation, they walk from remote villages into the cities, embodying the daily struggle. Those without vehicles often try to hitch rides, but most are unsuccessful. The public transportation system has all but collapsed, with inner-city bus routes no longer functioning. The few personal vehicles that remain are often broken down and barely operational. In Yemen, women live under tight restrictions and have almost no voice in society. It is a deeply patriarchal country where women are rarely seen in public and are largely confined to their homes. They are not allowed to drive or work and must be accompanied by a male guardian, mahram, whenever they go outside. This makes it extremely difficult for foreign men to interact with Yemeni women in public. Sadly, child marriage is a widespread issue in Yemen, especially in impoverished areas. Many families marry off their daughters at a very young age, sometimes in early adolescence or even younger, as a way to ease financial burdens. Arranged marriages are also very common. At weddings, men and women are completely separated. In some cases, the groom doesn't even know who his bride is until after the wedding, making the moment of first meeting a suspenseful surprise. In addition, a heartbreaking reality is that many Yemeni women are subjected to female genital mutilation at birth, a traditional practice that causes severe health complications and constitutes a serious human rights violation. Yemen is facing one of the greatest crises in its history: corruption. Instead of serving the country, politicians are focused solely on their own survival. They exploit resources, sell off oil, one of Yemen's most valuable assets, and transfer the profits into personal accounts in Western countries, while ordinary Yemenis endure a life of hardship. Even the gasoline sold at local stations has to be imported from Oman, a strange reality for an oil-rich nation. Alongside corruption, the absence of a strong government and lack of unity among the people have pushed Yemen further into chaos. People live in isolation, looting has become widespread, and some cities have been abandoned after violent attacks. For self-protection, many, including tour guides, carry rifles. Kidnappings have become a constant fear, and no one can predict what might happen in the next moment. The people here, all they wish for is a meal. Most Yemeni families have 6 or 7 children. Despite the tough living conditions, men still desire to have more children, though they often can't afford to raise them. Sadly, many children in Yemen don't go to school and have no access to technology. They live in poverty, with their happiest moments being when they receive gifts from strangers or play football, the one sport that brings them true joy. For girls, life is even harder. They often fetch water for their families from places without pipelines and help with housework. It's a heartbreaking reality that 40% of Yemen's population is under 15 years old, painting a grim picture for the future generation. Yemenis are known for their hospitality, curiosity, and sincerity. Despite all their hardships, they are always willing to share food and invite guests into their homes. If you're invited to a local family meal, you'll see them eating on the floor with dishes like kabuz, a type of flatbread, and saltah, a hearty stew, served. They don't hesitate to offer what little they have. Another unique trait of the Yemeni people is their view on age and material things. Most Yemenis don't know their exact age or date of birth, and they don't celebrate birthdays. In conversations, when asked about their age, many simply respond with, "I don't know," or "I'm about your age." This shows that they don't place much importance on numbers or personal milestones that people in the West often care about. And yet, Yemenis have never lost hope in their country. They still believe that one day, Yemen will overcome its difficulties and become a better place. They continue to hope for a brighter future and are always willing to share what little they have with foreigners. But the challenges remain. Yemen still needs a generation of truly patriotic leaders, people who act not for personal gain. The people hope their country will one day be known not for chaos, but for its beautiful beaches and thrilling desert adventures. But as long as tribal thinking and old problems persist, Yemen and countries like Libya will remain pawns in the hands of global powers. So, can Yemen truly change in the next 10 years? Or will it remain trapped in the shadows of corruption and conflict forever? Leave your thoughts and predictions in the comments below. If you found value in this video, don't forget to give us a like and turn on the notification bell. We hope to see you in our next video. See you there.